I've always known that I wanted to travel the path less traveled. And I went for this career, not knowing anyone who had gone before me who had studied actuarial science. And even in the pursuit of my studies, I knew that I didn't want to be in a traditional role. So most actuaries are employed in insurance companies and pension funds. I always knew that I wanted to use the skill set in a different platform altogether.
Welcome back to yet another episode of Suits and Stories. This is the platform, guys, where we interview really inspiring professionals that are doing big things in their career, all in the aim to inspire those of you that are still coming up in your career, that are still studying, to know what to expect in your career, but also to understand that, you know what, to make it to the top, you got to go through some things, right? And you got to overcome a lot of things. So that is what our podcast is about. So thank you for joining us yet again for another interview on Suits and Stories. Today, I have a very special guest. She describes herself as, you know, a small town girl from Guyana, but equally now describes herself as a savvy businesswoman, right? So we've got Shali with us in studio today, and I'm super excited to chat to her and for you guys to hear a little bit more about her journey and the things that she's done and achieved in her journey. So Shali, thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me, Bohlale. Excited to have this conversation with you.
Yeah, super, super exciting. So guys, I met Shali you know, in a previous role that I actually worked in about 3 years ago. And she just so happened to be someone I was sitting right next to. So I didn't have a chance, you know, like, you know, when you have an open plan, like you sit right next to the person. So, but she played such a pivotal role in just helping me acclimatize and understand what was going on and who the key stakeholders are and what's happening. So that's how I got to know Shali in my personal career. So I'm really excited for you guys to hear from her in terms of her career, what she's done. But before we get into the career, I'd love to ask you just a little bit of an icebreaker, Shali. Okay. Just around, you know, if you had the opportunity to have dinner with one historical figure, who would that be and why?
Sure. That's a tough one. I think it would probably be one of my great-grandparents. I'm trying to decide whether from my mom or dad's side. Probably from my mom's side.
I love it.
I think I draw a lot of inspiration from her story. And I didn't get to meet my great-grandparents. Even my grandparents were quite old by the time I was born. So learning from them, hearing about them would be a great experience for me.
Sure.
Especially because, you know, as Black people, our stories are not documented. They told through storytelling and conversation. So I'd definitely love to sit with one of my great-grandparents from my mom's side.
I love it. I love it. You know, the nice thing about a lot of people, when we ask them that, they go for like someone famous, right?
Yeah.
But the beauty in being able to tap into your own bloodline.
Exactly.
People you never got to meet, people you never got to just sit and have conversation with. And just the richness that you are about to gain just from that conversation.
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah.
So I love that. I love that. And I think it's very beautiful. So Shali, I mean, you describe yourself as, you know, having grown up in Guyana. You don't describe yourself. That is your reality. That's what happened.
That is the story.
That is the story, the beginning of the story.
Yeah.
But then you went on and you have an actuarial background, right? You've worked for big organizations. You're currently in quite a senior role in a tech company, Newton is Tech, I think.
Yeah.
And tell us a little bit more about that journey for you. Like, what is the one pivotal moment for you in knowing that this is Shali right now, but being that kind of person that dreams bigger than what your environment dictates for you? When did that start for you?
Yeah, I think for me, it's been a journey that I've been on since high school. Since high school.
Okay.
I always knew that I wanted to do something different. Everyone around me was studying accounting, engineering, medicine. I heard about this career. I heard about actuarial science through a friend of my mom's, actually, who owned a funeral business. I know, bizarre.
A funeral business? Okay. How about you go to Actuary?
Exactly. And she's like, I've worked with a few actuaries, very smart, and they make lots of money. And I was like, oh, okay. I think that's all I need to know.
Dad, I'm sold.
Exactly. Fast forward a few years ahead, I've always known that I wanted to travel the path less traveled. And I went for this career, not knowing anyone who had gone before me who had studied actuarial science. And even in the pursuit of my studies, I knew that I didn't want to be in a traditional role. So most actuaries are employed in insurance companies and pension funds. I always knew that I wanted to use the skill set in a different platform altogether. And I think that's how I've made a number of career decisions, from choosing to start my career in a bank, then moving into a behavioral science organization, then moving to an unconventional space altogether.
Yeah.
So I think there's been a few pivotal moments in my career, and I think with all those decisions that I've had to make, I've always chosen to go for the path that's been less traveled.
Tell me a bit more about why. Why have you decided less traveled? Okay, so already Actuary is like out there, right? It's not the conventional route. So you've studied that. But why, even as you make career decisions as you go, you don't want to do the typical things that actuaries do? What is it about being different?
So I think I've always been ambitious from a young age. And the way that I was raised, my mom always encouraged us to dream big. She always said she wanted to have a PhD by the time she was 40. And she never got to achieve that dream because she had to sacrifice to raise us. So I've always wanted to push the boundaries. I've always enjoyed a challenge. I think being an A student in high school, I found a lot of things to be relatively simple. And I always wanted to challenge myself. So I think it's this innate characteristic that I have to always seek a challenge. And I think there's typically there's a lot of uncharted areas in the professional world. I know, for example, accountants are all over. You see them in every single industry that you'll come across. Actuaries are typically very conventional, traditional, and I wanted to break that stereotype. I think also coming from a small town and sort of having to land in a big city, that's been an exciting challenge.
Yeah.
And I think being able to make that transition has made me believe that I can actually conquer anything that I put my mind to. So I guess it's that will and that I guess characteristic in me.
I love that. So I love that. I love how you say, adjusting to big city, and how that can spark that kind of inspired action of like, I want to become bigger. There is more, because I think once you come to big city, you realize, there's so much more.
Exactly.
And that almost gives you that sense of, that means I can become more, right? So I love that. I love that about your journey. And I like the idea on being unconventional and just taking the route less traveled, because I do think sometimes a lot of people constrain themselves based on their degree as opposed to see the opportunity that the degree offers them just from a skill set perspective, right? So you spoke about like, people that start in banks, or, you said that CAs are everywhere in every industry. And that is true for a lot of different careers, I would think. That, when I worked in a bank, I saw them wanting engineers. And I was like, what is an engineer going to do in a bank, right? But it's about the skill set and the mindset that you have, the training you've had in your discipline that's allowing you to be valuable in the marketplace.
Exactly.
Right?
Exactly.
Take us through your time in a bank. You mentioned you worked for a bank when you started. What for you was a pivotal moment in being in an unconventional space that allowed for you to grow professionally, that allowed for you to then elevate or go to the next step, or was a learning curve for you?
So firstly, I guess my decision to go into banking, as I said, was because of wanting to explore a different industry. But I think that the great thing about banking is there's a lot of parallels between banking and insurance. So financial services in nature, but a relatively new space for actuaries. I think being in the bank actually affirmed my views around being able to apply the skill set in a different area. So the actuarial degree equips you with a quantitative skill set, so the ability to quantify uncertainty, basically. That's what actuaries do, using a combination of statistics, mathematics, finance, economics, to basically create a certain projection about the future. And in my first role, I was a graduate and I had to learn how to code. And it's something
What? Coding? Why?
Yeah, I was just like, am I in the right place? Is this what I signed up for?
What that conventional?
Yeah. And I think that was a pivotal moment, needing to learn a skill set, unconventional again, not what I expected, but seeing how applicable it's been in my career. It's allowed me to progress into various roles that I've occupied since then. And it's also taught me the value of being uncomfortable, having to dig deep, not entirely loving it, but having to put in the work.
Yeah.
And as I said, a lot of things came easy for me in my earlier life. So having to learn that skill around putting in the work and doing the work to get the results that you need. I think it was an amazing time in my career, and I think a time that really shaped how I've progressed since then.
Very valuable nuggets that you've shared there, Shali. And I what came to mind to me is just the whole concept of, when you're uncomfortable in a space, right? A lot of people like to default to, I just want to be more comfortable at what I'm doing. But in that journey, you're missing the lesson of the character building stuff that needs to happen.
Exactly.
And when you're striving to go unconventional, then you are bound to meeting those kinds of situations that force you to grow bigger than what your degree dictates, the environment dictates, what makes you comfortable as a person, as an individual. So it's such a critical skill to be able to have, and being able to work through discomfort and work through feeling misaligned maybe with where you are, what you thought you'd be doing, all of that kind of thing, right? But I guess also in that, there are times you're going to fail. There are times you're going to have setbacks, right? It's not just about, I feel uncomfortable, let me work through it. No. In that discomfort, you are going to fail at something. Yeah. You're going to make a lot of mistakes. You are going to be in trouble for something that you thought you were supposed to do, but you didn't do it the right way because of an assumption and because someone said something. You get what where I'm going with this. So in that, in you wanting to be unconventional, tell me just of a time where there was a setback for you, or where you felt that you failed at something, and how you bounced back from that.
I think, I guess one of those moments for me was in university. Came again from a small town, very scared of the big city, lots of stats flying around how people don't complete their degrees at WITS, and how people start with actuarial science and then end up finishing with another degree. And I worked really hard in first year, but I never really believed that I could be excellent. I thought it would be enough for me to just pass. And that's what I aimed for in first year. And I passed, and I had good marks. Second year, I, in my mind, thought, oh, I've got this. You know, I managed to actually get through first year, defied the odds, you know, defied the statistics. And that's where the big lesson came. I struggled at the start of the year with a few of my subjects, and I struggled to bounce back throughout the year. At the end of the year, I had failed one of my subjects for the first time ever, and that was a moment that really shook me. Besides the fear of losing my scholarship and the fear of my mom, I had to deal
Miss PhD,
right?
Yeah.
I had to deal with that disappointment, and there was no shortcut around it. It meant that I either had to go back into class with people that were a year behind me and learn the lessons that I needed to learn. But that year was a really critical year for me because it allowed me some space, some breathing room. First year was very hectic, and the course is very hectic in general. But because I had to repeat the subject, I had space and time to think and to do other things. And what I decided to do in that year is pursue one of my other interests, which is economics. So I decided to add on a few subjects into my...
Here's someone that's saying, oh, give me some breathing room. But now that I've got space...
Exactly. Let me fill it up.
Add on some other things. Yeah. So you added what? Economics?
I added economics, and I was doing statistics. And I also started taking up a few extramural activities. So started getting more involved in societies at the university. So started to really build a community. I think what allowed me to bounce back is, I guess, accepting the results, the results of my actions, and having to go back and realize that there's no shortcut around it. I have to do the groundwork, and I think that moment was really important because it humbled me, and it grounded me, and it has allowed me to navigate life knowing that failure is always a possibility, but that it doesn't define me. And I can always bounce back.
I love it. I love it. I love how you flipped the script there, right? You had an opportunity to redo something, but in that decided, well, it gives me time now to get involved. It gives me time to do some extracurricular activities. It gives me time to add on other subjects that otherwise would not be part of my curriculum. And I'm sure those things have come in handy, right?
Definitely.
I've always gone through life feeling like, sometimes the setbacks, they give you a little bit of a detour towards a very different space and field. But whatever you learned during that detour somehow becomes handy later on, somehow becomes a skill set that you never knew you needed, right? So I love that you used your time in that way, and you just found ways to amplify that additional year by doing all of those kind of extras. Now, for those people that are thinking, okay, actuaries, what is this about? What is the big hype about it? That maybe want to study it or are starting studying and are finding it difficult. What do you think? What nuggets could you give people to give them a better sense of what being an actuary is about, but also what it takes to actually succeed in the profession as a whole?
Yeah, I guess the career or being an actuary is ultimately about using statistics, analytics, finance, accounting, economics. So we've got a very wide range of tools in our toolkit that we use to predict the future. No, we're not wizards. We're not magicians. But it's a data-driven career. So what actuaries do is we try create certainty around uncertainty. So typical example that I give is insurance, right? You buy a car, you're not sure when you're gonna be in an accident, when you're gonna need to repair the car. Actuaries have perfected this craft over years. They know what the probabilities are based on how old you are, how many years of driving experience you've got, where you live. And they use that to quantify what your risk of being in an accident is. And therefore how much you need to pay as an insurance premium to cover you in the case that you are unfortunately in an accident.
Yeah.
So this skill set is applicable in a lot of areas. I think there's a lot of uncertainty in today's day and age. Insurance is the typical case, but actuaries have started to be more involved in other areas. So I think it's a very exciting career. I think it's a great skill set to have, and as I said, I think it's quite applicable in a lot of areas. For example, I'm in a sales role at the moment, but the thinking that I've built, my ability to solve problems is very applicable in the role that I'm in. The ability to pull in different pieces of information, different data, to come to a conclusion and to be able to explain it is a key skill that actuaries possess. I think in order to be successful in this space, you really need to enjoy a challenge.
Yeah.
It's a degree that really requires you to be able to problem solve, to be able to communicate. I think it's a very well-rounded skill set. And I think because of I guess the challenges in our country and how difficult it is to obtain the degree, there is a huge demand for actuaries.
Yeah.
And yeah, I'd definitely encourage anyone who wants to take up the career to read up more about it. Reach out to me if you need to chat.
Yep.
And yeah, definitely willing to share.
She said it. So if you need to chat to Shali a little bit more around the career, make sure that you're putting it in the comments below. I'll make sure to connect you guys. But beautiful journey, Shali, that you've shared. I was recently looking at some of your posts where you are gallivanting the world, you and your husband, and I was like, okay, where are you now? What are you doing? No, we're just going to Vegas. It's for work. I'm like, right. Tell us just a little bit about your proudest moment to date in your career. And thereafter, we always do the career theme song. Thereafter, tell me about your career theme song. But before that, what's your proudest moment in your career to date? And I'm saying that, and guys, she's like super young, right? So we're not talking to someone who's in their 40s or 50s or whatever. But Shali's achieved a lot in her career in a short space of time. So hence why I wanna know what your proudest moment is. And I also think it's important to always take stock of the positive milestones. I think too often we like looking at all the places where we failed, all the places we haven't done well, all the places that we should have done things differently. But ask yourself, what have I been proud of? What have I loved about my journey? Even if you're 2 years into your career, what are you most proud of about what you've done? Because it's always important to take stock of your achievements along the way so that you have a balanced view of how you're doing, where you're going, and everything that's still coming in your career.
So I'll reflect on 2 moments.
Yeah. 2?
Yes.
There's a lot. But she'll just tell you 2.
The first one is actually an experience that we shared. So I think for me, the launch of the CA program that we worked on together was a really proud moment for me. I think being able to give back, being able to invest in the growth and the development of the next generation, for me was a really exciting journey. I think being involved in the crafting of the program from inception, ideation, marketing the program, actually getting people applying for the program and seeing them join the company and flourish. I think that's been a really special moment for me.
Yeah.
And I guess because I almost studied accounting.
Then amongst other things,
it really felt like I was in their shoes.
Yeah.
So that's a really proud moment for me. The second one, I guess, is linked to the travels.
Yeah.
Recently, I was selected to represent the company at an international conference, and that was a big moment.
Yeah.
That was a big moment. Being able to travel to the US, speak to global leaders, speak to people that work in the biggest companies. As a little small town girl, was
from
Guyani.
There we go.
was a really proud moment for me. I mean, I work for a big organization, and having had that opportunity and having had the company have that faith in my ability to represent, to sell our offering, to sell our proposition, was a really proud moment for me. So those are the two.
Shine. That's just beautiful, beautiful, beautiful.
Thank you.
Congratulations on your new role. It's not really too new anymore, but congratulations on being elected, even though you've been in your role for a short amount of time, to go and represent the organization. And this is where I saw all the travels, and I was just like, girls living up her life, like properly. But all comes through hard work, guys, putting yourself in uncomfortable situations, making sure that you are always trying to go for the unconventional, right? You heard Shali speak about putting together a grad program. Like, if you think about it, where does that come into the realm of actuaries anyway, right? But it's her willingness to put herself in projects and teams, to just be a thinker, be the brain behind something. It doesn't have to do with that particular career or discipline that she's in, right? And that's how you learn to elevate. That's how you learn different skills along the way. I haven't forgotten about your career theme song. We will wrap up with what your career theme song is.
So everyone who knows me knows that I'm a very proud Tsonga girl.
Yes, I know that for a fact.
My career theme song had to be Tsonga.
Yes.
The name of the song is Gona by Shoma Josie.
Okay.
You know her, right?
I know Shoma Josie.
Okay,
Who doesn't know
please.
Shoma?
Okay, great. And I really like the message in the song. So in the chorus of the song, she says, "Hiwela inkwako, hikona," which means we belong, right? I think a lot of people know the song, but don't know the meaning behind it. And this is a very, I guess, relevant song in my life because, as I said, coming from a small town, being Tsonga, coming from the smallest, I guess, cultural group in the country, you sometimes don't believe in yourself. And you sometimes find yourself occupying spaces that you maybe don't feel like you're worthy or you should be there. So this song is quite special to me. It speaks about belonging. It speaks about deserving the experiences that you're having. Yeah, she speaks about, we belong in Hollywood, we belong in Joburg, and that comes from a long story that Tsonga people have had for years, coming from another province, being considered as migrants in Joburg. And yeah, it's just a song that really affirms me that I belong, and I belong in all the spaces that I occupy.
Hey, amen to that. You belong in all the spaces that you occupy. Shali, this has been such a rich conversation. even for me, just how it started, you know, the one historical person, and it's like, well, my grandparents, you know, great-grandparents. Just your authenticity, your ability to be in discomfort, learn from it, navigate through it. But also just that fighting spirit that you have, you know, to put yourself in spaces where you may not feel like you belong, but you make sure there's space for you, you know, and you make sure to make your presence felt and known, you know. So it's been such a privilege working alongside you when I did. And I think so much value, guys, that you've learned from this particular episode. There's so much more I want to ask now that she's gone into uncomfortable situations. I'm like, okay, let's talk about imposter syndrome. Like, how did you navigate that? Right? There's so much more to unpack within this. But I think just introducing who Shali is for now is sufficient, and maybe we have a part 2 to this conversation, right? But guys, thank you so much for tuning in. Thank you so much for spending the time listening, learning, gaining insight from people that have gone above you, that have gone ahead of you. And those of you that are interested, once again, in going the actuary route, please make sure you're commenting below. I'll try and connect you with Shali as well. Maybe one group session, not one at a time. She's a busy woman. You know, who knows? She might be in Vegas next week again, representing the organization. But yeah, super proud of you, Shali. Thank you so much for your time. Thank you so much for the wisdom. And thank you so much for sharing your journey with the audience, guys. Up until the next one, I'll see you there.